Welcome everybody to this opportunity, to this time and space. Welcoming ourselves to the time and space that we're in. Recollecting, reconnecting, a sense of well-being. In the present, here and now. This breath, this offering of life, received and released. And this attention given is like this. In this moment, and settling in stillness of this moment. Allowing the sensitivity, allowing the experience, this time and space, knowing this knowing. Reconnecting with the sense of well-wishing that life itself has for itself. And the knowing of this, knowing of this knowing. in the fullness of this life, this experience. And the completeness of this as it is. And gathering and the reconnecting, the recollecting, remembering of this knowing. The interest and the aliveness. In the stillness, and the sensitivity of life. The knowing is this. This is known. And the stillness and the steadiness is sensitive and receives life, all of it, and responds with a gift of attention. A clear, collected discerning. Knowing is this. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good night, however it is in your time and space. The time and space when this is part of it. It's a strange thing, this practice of meditation and the tasks that we can set ourselves, some of which we may be quite good at and some of which may be confusing. Whatever uh, techniques and practices we do, they're all, if they do lead to and do express themselves through our lives in ways that are helpful and blessing to ourselves and others, then that's really good. And I think what's encouraging sometimes for people and can be encouraging for people is the sense of there's no more tasks. There isn't a task that's necessary. There's no more jobs and things that I need to work out how to do. And more, or just notice and notice that noticing, not as a task, not as a job or a technique that one has to perfect or become proficient in, but trust and trust life, the presence of life itself, or the presence of attention and sensitivity. This is something that we can work with or suggest to ourselves, not as a job that we need to do or something that we need to get right. And maybe what blocks or what hinders or what upsets is that's of course ultimately ignorance. The fact that we don't know, that there's not the knowing, the fact that we don't know that we don't know. But on a mundane level, there's and people ask about trauma and how to deal with traumas or things in the past that have been difficult or uh, in some way um, so strong that they leave a mark. And of course, there's physical trauma, which can obviously leave a mark and scars or loss of limbs or parts of the body or some sickness. And there's that trauma. And that's maybe quite, that can be quite obvious. Some physical traumas are internal or not so clear. But there's also, in addition, and there's also the mental trauma and psychological trauma and all the emotional traumas and things like this that can happen. There are lists of the different traumas that one can experience, and how to, or with from different people or circumstances where people have injured or traumatized or misused, and then maybe one remembers it or feels it or doesn't, and then how to deal with that personal trauma, what to do with that. And the suggestion is, in the Buddhist practice, is this idea of letting go, and that can be quite almost dismissive. There used to be the phrase in the communities sometimes, if something difficult happened or something was somehow traumatic, or just watch your mind, let it go, and then it becomes that instruction becomes something that then one can feel inadequate about if one still feels the trauma, and so letting go, not even as a goal or as a practice. It's a suggestion to the heart. Certainly, the thing that can help oneself is a sense of forgiveness, which is, I feel the suggestion that one makes to oneself that one's not going to carry that burden further. That is something that one can put down. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean pretending that it didn't happen. It doesn't mean ignoring it, and it doesn't mean sort of trying to sort of cover it over. It's more like I'm not going to make this a further problem in the moment. I'm going to see how I can relate to this so that I can do the best I possibly can with it. Because it's something that's that's a mess. It's maybe difficult, confusing, yeah, powerful feelings of damage. If people are physically traumatized, then how do they deal with that? And then how does it work? Because ultimately, so the sort of underneath of it all, the trauma that we've all experienced at some point is birth, because birth is traumatic. Physical birth is traumatic. The sense of arriving as a separate being somewhere is a thing, and the human birth is traumatic, even if it's a reasonably easy physical birth. It's a whole business. This arriving, and then through our lives, we can't escape trauma. Some trauma is greater than others, certainly. I'm not trying to put it down or belittle it, but recognizing it, that this is how this life is, and then what can I do with it now? And this is where our freedom or our power lies. It's in this moment. How it's this moment that we relate to the past trauma. It's in this moment. Do we re-traumatize ourselves? Do we mull it over in a way that just reinvigorates the emotions or the thoughts or the experience? And so it gets reinforced. Or how do we relate so that it's in its place in the past? And then how do we relate to it so that we can do something beautiful with it? Again, those with physical trauma can say that have used that trauma not as a hindrance, but as something, recognizing it as a hindrance, but still working with it in ways that that's like overcome, but it's more, they turn that, whatever trauma they've experienced, into something that then can be that they accept and do what they can from there with it. And maybe physical trauma is easier. I don't know. Mental trauma is easier. I don't know. But certainly don't, if there have been people that have injured you, it's not that you shouldn't do anything about it. Or if you can find ways of changing the relationship, then do. And if people have done things that have harmed you in some way, then to do what you can to allow them to realize the consequences of their actions. And if the consequences can be recognized by them and admitted by the people who've somehow traumatized you within the lifetime, then that's much more effective and kind to them. It's a kindness to people for them to face the consequences of actions within the lifetime, so that they have a chance to actually, accept and deal with the consequences now. And of course, there's all sorts of things that are unfair as well. So it's not trying to say that all the consequences and all the things that people experience are fair or unfair, because there is unfair. And how that all works, I don't know, because that's the workings of karma, which are, if I think too much about, what Lord Buddha said, my head would explode, or anybody's head would explode. It's not something that I don't have the psychic power to deal with it, but I do notice that how people deal with trauma is different. And I do hope that people do things that can relieve trauma now and in the future. And if people can, then that's great, because it's not just individuals that traumatize other individuals. It's whole structures of and ways of relating within society that give space for this to happen, through employment, through relationships to governments, and how all that works, which is traumatizing. So but then how do we deal with that ourselves? What sort of relationship can we work with so that the breath that we experience here and now is a blessing and not a further curse? And that's the sort of the challenge that is in each moment, actually, in each time and space. And I don't have answers to how to do that. And each person, each time and space needs to do it themselves. So I can't give a sort of specific way, this is how you should deal with this one, or this is how you should deal with that one. The intention is not to generate further harm for oneself or for others, and not to exploit oneself or others to try to somehow get something for nothing or get more, because that's just unskillful, and won't lead to a sense of peace, and not to indulge. And that's the one where again, it's like you're not milking something for more than is there. So those are the samasankappa. Particularly in terms of trauma, it's not to further harm and not to exploit. The do no harm business of the old Hippocratic oath, the old oath of doctors, is it's a good beginning. It's a good beginning. And in trauma, and the trauma that one experiences, one has experienced, how to allow the trauma of life to not do no harm. And that's a challenge, because life is bound up with the whole business of frustration and the rubbing against of different hopes and expectations, fears and angers that we experience, and the ignorance of not knowing where it all comes from and how the whole thing works, which is inherent in trauma, because trauma also, one of the responses of trauma is to try and pretend it's not there, particularly psychological trauma. And ignorance and actively ignoring something and actively not knowing that we don't know, that we're covering over 2 or 3 times the whole thing, because of the whole amazing trauma of just having to cope with life. And we do have, the opportunity to stop and gratefully receive one breath. The the small periods of stopping and receiving and gratefully receiving and giving attention is, I hope, something that brings joy and allows joy to be present. Because joy is a wonderful, hopeful energy. It rests in gratitude and appreciation. And this life is an incredible opportunity to awaken to how things actually are. And to find and to realize that which is beyond time and space. So that the forgiveness and the willingness to forgive is realized and opened to and felt, and forgiving ourselves for the errors and omissions, intentional or unintentional, by body, speech, and mind, that are part of this whole thing of the confusion that we do feel, and then reconnecting with the that life with life itself, and not feeling inadequate in this, a sense of either sense of neediness, of having to have something or getting something or becoming something. I won't be happy unless this happens. It's a sure experience of pain in the present and pain in the future. And setting ourselves up for that, it's going to be difficult. So that the one doesn't, it's not that one doesn't do, doesn't think, doesn't say, but the intention behind it can be one of an offering, rather than a getting and gaining. And if that is there, then that is known too, and is allowed to rest in the knowing, allowed to be revealed. And in that revealing, it also has a chance to end, because it's noticed in the context of this knowing, this moment, this sensitivity. Which is just, a transforming of something, of this trauma of life that is mucky and difficult and a muddle and a bit confused and into an open space of joy. And you're trying trying to turn muck into manure and transform this business of life as best you can. And this is not a task that you need to set yourself, but something that I need to do, I need to become. Because it doesn't work like that. Because that's another trauma that you're setting yourself up for. Another problem to solve. Another task to do. And that's guaranteed to make it more difficult and more traumatic for you. I just see what happens in each moment. See what is happening in each moment. Know and hear and alive in this moment. Taste, smell, experience the whole business of this alive moment. In a sense, because there's nothing in this alive moment, nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to become. This is, it's not going forward into the future, and it's not going backwards, and it's not even resting. It's just this. Is the encouragement, not trying to deny or get rid of trauma. It's just recognizing that life is trauma. There's an awful lot. There's an awful lot of it, and it's not. This is how it is, and yet, at the same time, life is absolutely stunningly wonderful. And it's an incredible, grateful given, this sensitivity. We try to do the best we can with it so that it's a blessing for ourselves and for others, about what we can do. So I offer that for your consideration, and we'll try to answer some of the questions and check what I can do. If you'd like to send your questions again, I'll see what I can do using the chat function. We got Upadi and Upadana again. Yes. Can Ajahn kindly explain the difference between those Upadi, basis of attachment, and Upadana, clinging? Well, Frank, thankfully, the great God Google reveals all sorts. And they're terms, they're words, of course. Words point to something or try to point to something. But it's the lived experience that's the important thing. I think that the way what Upadi points to or is suggesting is that the basis or the thing or the object to which Upatana clings to. Yes. So it's what is what is clung to, and the basic, the wealth, status, things, um, families, power, position, these sorts of things. Those are the positive things, or the things that one wants, and the negative things, misfortune, blame, pain, physical pain, mental pain. These are the things, and then upadhana is the clinging to them. Is the stickiness of them? Is that the sticking to them? Of course, the ones that are the heaps that everything can be put into are the five heaps: the rupa, vedana, sanya, sankara, vijnana. These are the basis for upadhana. These are the things that are clung to. These are the things that are taken personally and stuck to, as when one wants them to be other than the way that they are. And so the basis is the upadi, and the clinging to them is the upadhana. So that's the short answer, I think, that maybe explains it. The things in themselves are just things in themselves. It's not a big problem about form, feeling, perception, conception, and consciousness. They belong to nature. And that's the way that the things are. The difficulty comes when they're taken personally and clung to, or the wanting them to be. The tanha is the thirst for them to be otherwise. And then the objects to which that thirst attach are the upadi. And then the fact of the attachment is the upadhana. Okay. So there's the tanha, which is the thirst or the compulsion to do something, and then it finds an object, and the object is the upadi. So the object of fascination, I really want this, or I really want this to happen, or I really want this person to be this way, or I really want this relationship to be this way, or not to be this way. That's the same thing is still upadhana, and that's the birth of me as somebody who needs that or wants that or doesn't want that, and that's the jati. And the trauma is the experience of the whole thing, which is leads to a sense of blindness. And we know how that works. It's a fixing as we fix from one thing to the next, one thing to the next, as we keep repeating the patterns of birth and death, birth and death, birth and death. So upadi is the things that the tanha reaches out, and the upadhana is the clinging thereof. So I hope that helps. When I feel guilty about something, does that mean that there is the recognition that I didn't do the best in the situation? Guilt is never helpful. I am somebody who's wrong is never helpful. What's helpful is hiri and otapa. Yeah? Hiri is shame, and otapa is the sense of withdrawing from doing something that one knows is wrong. So hiri and otapa are helpful. They guard the world. They guard the world from troubles. They keep the rubbish out. They keep the mess out. Hiri and otapa are the guardians of the world. They keep the world well. Hiri is the sense of, I did something wrong. There was something wrong. Guilt is thinking, I'm a bad person, I did something wrong. Do you see the difference? the I'm a bad person is extra. That's the attachment to the form, feeling, perception, conception, and consciousness, which is going to make for suffering. I'm a bad person. Then recognition, this was a bad thing that was happening, or this was an unskillful thing that was happening. That's hiri. That's fine. Otapa is, this is dangerous. If I start doing this, this is going to be painful. So I don't do it. Yeah, it's not putting your fingers on the live wire because it's it's going to go. It's going to be painful. Yeah, you just withdraw. You just don't do it. 6 consciousnesses. It's a way of dividing consciousness for convenience. And it's the consciousness, these are the consciousnesses that are burning with the fire of greed, burning with the fire of hatred, burning with the fire of delusion. And that's the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So 6 bases of consciousness. And these are the ones where there's the sense of separation. There's the sense of the sense space, eye, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind. And then there's forms, sounds, smells, tastes, the sense of touch, or the sense of the body, and the mind, the thoughts, mental objects. The 5, the 4, 5 need the 6th, because that's where it happens. But for convenience, we call it 6. But there is these without, the 5 can be separated. That's the 6. Those are the 6 ones that are burning. Those are the ones that are burning with the fire of greed, hatred, and confusion, because they're the ones. That's the way that the upatana tanha goes out. Those are the ones that feel that it goes out and finds an object to proliferate about and to make much of, to perceive, and then sanya, sankara, the perception and the habits around it, and go out through that. I mean, there's more senses. There's a sense of balance, which is to do with the body. There's a sense of presence. There's all sorts of senses, as people who study these things know. And for convenience, you can divide them in any way. But in terms of Buddhism, they do the 6 senses. So that's the 6 senses. I hope that that's reasonably clear. Yeah. The relationship to the 6 senses is to see them as this is where it's burning, and be careful. Be careful when one of the things that is a practice that's encouraged is indriya samvara, which is to protect the senses so that you don't make much of what you see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and think. So you don't make much of it. So you don't go, allow the sensitivity to be there, but don't go seeking too much. One of the great things that I find going through shopping centers or in, airports, they make you go through this maze through the duty-free shops as a way of encouraging you to buy more. And of course, my senses are not interested in all that. I don't have any money. I couldn't go buying things if I tried. So there's no point in it. And if you can, through life, not get drawn out too much into stuff that's not necessary, you'll find that the senses can, one, be more sensitive, and two, you won't be pulled around so much. It's a simple thing, Indriya Sangra. Notice what you need to notice in the moment, and particularly notice that you are noticing. And something simple and peaceful, protects the senses. And so giving attention to something that's simple and peaceful is skillful because it protects the senses from getting too jangled, too disturbed, too irritated. And then it stops the whole thing of the mind going out and seeking satisfaction where it can't get any, as the philosopher Jagga said. I hope that helps. Did Ajahn Chah talk about the forest and things? Yes. It's important. And it's important to look after it. What one can do is a gift. Fear of death. Every night since I'm a child, I've been reminded that I have the nature to die, and I have not gone beyond death. I'm immediately filled with fear. I've tried to talk about it, to take the weight off it, out of it, but we still live in a society that does not like to talk about it. I have this inside sensation that death can actually be quite liberating. Can you offer some insight about how to deal with death in a skillful way? Trust, the sense of trust in the Dhamma is a way beyond fear. Trust in the way things are, trust in the skillfulness of one's thought, one's speech, and one's actions. Trust in that, even if I die right now, it'll be the death of the body. And this will be something that I don't need to worry about. There's nothing more that I need to do, nowhere I need to go, nothing I need to become. I've done best I can. And that, yes, the actual death of the body might be painful, but that's the body's business. The actual, what one fears is something that is not. Fear is something, aversion to something that's not happening. When the thing is actually happening, there's just pain, and it's But what one is saying is, I don't want pain in the future. When one feels fear now, and that can be visceral. It can be at a very basic level. The body has its own fear mechanism, it's going to jump out of the way of something that might hurt it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's an automatic mechanism, because the body has its own, the body's purpose is to keep going as long as it can with the limitations of what it has. That's its purpose. It's not going to try to, in itself, it's not going to try to die. It has to be very much overridden for somebody to commit suicide. In itself, the body will just keep going until something fails. And so there's going to be that fear. That's the nature of that mechanism. The mental fear is, the fear of possible pain during this, which is not actually the fear of dying, of death. It's the fear of dying, which is different from the fear of death. Yeah? The fear of dying is the fear of the pain that might be associated with it. The physical pain or the mental pain, or the fact that this thing might not work so well, the fear of Alzheimer's or some debilitating disease that maybe one feels one can't cope with or won't be able to cope with. That's the fear of the dying process, which is different from the fear of death. The fear of death in itself is like, I don't know what's going to happen. And that's the fear of the unknown. And the unknown is can be both frightening, it can be exciting. You don't know what's in your presence, either later this evening or tomorrow. But that's exciting because you think they're going to be great. And the not knowing that allows itself to be interested. It's the not knowing that allows doubt to be doubt. It's okay not to know. That sense of, I don't have to know. Actually, I don't know. And that's actually all right, because it's like you're not trying to get somewhere, and you're not trying to just retreat into the known, go backwards. And you're not making anything of this moment. This is how it is. I'm not trying to say I shouldn't be frightened. I'm not trying to say I should be excited. I'm not trying to get anything out of it. It's just like this. And what you can have confidence is in that you feel that you've done the best you can. And that's why there's the encouragement to see what blessings can be made of this moment. Because then you can have more confidence that, in the doing of good, there is goodness. In the doing of things that are skillful, there's skillfulness. And I notice that I don't have to take my body personally. It has its own agenda. I don't have to take the way that the body and the mind respond or the senses respond personally. That's just the way that Vedana works. My perceptions are just a made-up thing that just happens to be this way. The habits and the sankharas are just something that are in themselves are just hollow. And this whole business of separation that I feel with sense consciousness is not real, because consciousness also joins, and there's consciousness that is unattached. It's just a trick. I don't have to take this all personally. This thing will just go the way that it goes. Nature will just do what nature does. and we'll see what happens. No. Hi, Bernard. Bernard Kastrup. I don't know. I don't know what the Buddha said about the universe as a big brain of the mind. He didn't give a lot of speculation about this. I mean, the story of the, I'm not sure it was a monk or a layperson, somebody who went up and asked all these people, where does the universe end? There's a great sutta about it, and you'll have to look it up. Where does the universe end? Google will tell you. What did the Buddha say about where the universe ends? He said, you got the wrong question there. Since where do the four great elements no footing find? And that's it. That's a different question. So thank you. That's probably enough for the recording today and the questions. Maybe that helped, maybe that didn't. Maybe stop the recording and I can wish you well.